Hey y'all, and welcome to another drawing video of mine. Today I will be drawing one of my favorite villagers from Animal Crossing New Horizon, Merengue. Why is she my favorite villager? Well, actually I don't know, because I never had her as a villager. Unfortunately, I've not been blessed by the Animal Crossing gods. I don't know. Either way, I don't have her as a villager. I have no idea what kind of person, what kind of rhino she is, but she's really sweet. She's literally a rhino with cake toppings. That sounds awfully weird if you don't know who I'm talking about. But put all that aside, we will be drawing Merengue today. Yeah, that's right. We will be drawing Merengue today. I will break down the doodle process a little bit more this time around and hope that you can maybe follow along and just scribble it down with me, just trying to explain the different steps within doodling, I guess. So let's see how that goes. I will be drawing the entire drawing in grayscale and ink so that this one matches my previous Animal Crossing drawings, which you can all find on Etsy. Well, without any further ado, let's just get started. Let's actually start at the end here. This is the finished doodle I made earlier today. It is Merengue from Animal Crossing. She's a little rhino, and as every Animal Crossing character, her shapes are, and I mean that in a nice way, basic. She's a basic rhino, consisting of very, very basic shapes. And if you put them all together, you actually end up with an Animal Crossing villager. So let's break it down for you and you can follow along step by step. The first things we do is the head, which consists of two circles. We're going to have a big circle, which is the main part of the head. And then we have a slightly smaller circle, which is the snout of the rhino. You can now add in the cheek, the eye, and we're now adding the whipped cream or whatever it is which is covering her face. Side note, not every rhino has that. That is very particular to Merengue. So if you just want to draw a cute rhino, you should leave that out. We're adding the nostril, which is pretty much halfway through or midway through that second circle. Now for the ears, at the beginning, you can also just add an oval. I gave it a little bit of a pointy tip, as that is how rhino ears do look like. Now we're adding the part which actually makes it look like a rhino, because quite frankly before, this could have also been a horse, except from the nostrils maybe being a little bit high up. But other than that, pretty much the beginning of a horse also. If you're looking at the body, it's actually really simple. Just like the horns are basically triangles, the body, you can pretty much just add a triangle. I gave it a little bit more shape than just a triangle. You could technically also just add a square box underneath it. Depending on what you want your character to wear, either way works. The arm, once again, if you just want to break it down, it is two circles and two lines. A circle at the shoulder part, a circle for the hand, and then you can connect the lines, give it a little bit of a curve. Luckily, we're not drawing very realistic here, so you have a lot of wiggle room, really, with proportions when you're drawing these, I guess we call them chibi characters. Just cute little round characters. Now I'm doing that one thing which I do a lot, which is, you know, cover things up. Now, if I wouldn't draw her holding a strawberry, this is where the second arm would go, but we are having her holding a giant strawberry. So let's get that done. Pretty much, again, either a triangle or a circle or something in between, which is what I did. That's pretty much a strawberry. And again, hot tip here, if you ever struggle with drawing something specifically, that can be a hand, an arm, or if an angle is off, think about ways to cover it up. There is always clothing or plants and any kind of environment, things you can put in front of that spot you're not comfortable with drawing. It's a nice way to pivot. Some will call it cheat. I call it pivot. Now I'm just going about redefining a few of the lines just so we have the proportions correct for our little rhino. Little Merengue, she has a name. Since she is standing quite, I guess, straightforward, yeah, upper body leaned towards the side a tiny little bit, it's actually quite easy to draw a line in the middle down, add a triangle. So basically it's two triangles. It's one triangle with the pointy bit up and one triangle with the pointy bit down, and that is the upper body and the lower body, just with a little definition. I think I will break it down in its ultimate, most simple shape again afterwards, but let's just see, let's just stick with this for now. Remember, since we're still drawing with a pencil, you can change everything. Definitely do change it if something feels off. I mean, this is the doodle stage. Like, this is where you should be making the mistakes, preferably, and not later on. We're adding a little tail. But as you can see, my final drawing, I want strawberries all over the place. Like, she's standing in a huge field of massive strawberries, as rhinos do. Strawberries are pretty simple to draw as well. As I said earlier, it's basically a triangle. Here's a triangle, put a star on top of the triangle, rounding the edges or the corners of the triangle, add some dots, and you got yourself a strawberry. A very, 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 very simple fruit to draw. Then again, technically all fruits are fairly simple. So now we're adding the strawberry dots on her nose as well. Erasing some of the lines which we use to help us out with the basic shapes. And then we can go from there. Again, take a look at all the different steps. We started with very basic shapes, like so. So let me take an actual blue pencil to just quickly go over it again as we repeat the process. Small circle, big circle. Doesn't need to be perfectly round, don't get hung up on it. Small circle for the eye, a triangle for the horns, and ovals for the ears, a triangle for the upper body, another triangle for the lower body, 2 circles for the arms, a small circle for the nostril, and then we go about defining it. So this is the super, super basic geometrical breakdown of this specific little rhino. And once you have that, you can start erasing lines and redefining the individual pieces a little bit, so that it looks a little less like, geometry, I guess. So now I'm adding basically the process of the second picture in that first picture. And once you're happy with the basic proportions and the shape, you can then go on and really define it. Add some shadows, add some highlights, add, the little bits and bobs which actually make it a full and complete drawing. So this is the doodle I will be using with my light table once again. We're going to be using a fine art printer. First, I will have to actually ink this piece because I will be drawing on tanned paper, and tanned paper is even thicker and harder to actually see through despite having a light table. So I gotta make these lines very, very thick and basically just ruin a neat little doodle for the sake of being able to trace it. So I don't have to go again in terms of proportions, and I don't want to erase on my fine paper. This is the main reason why I'm using a light table in most of the cases. I can't really erase on the good paper. If I start doing that, I'm breaking the surface, and then the Copics as well as the ink will bleed out and it's gonna look a mess. So in order to be as clean as possible and use the coloring as clean as possible, I have to trace these as clean as possible, just to say that again. And now it's rinse and repeat from what you've been seeing in my previous video. We're tracing it through the light table, followed up by just cleaning up that tracing, making sure that the pencil drawing looks as clean and neat as possible. Then we go over it with our fine liner. I'm using PIGMA MICRON 005. That's the thickness, or lack of thickness. That's the thinnest I think you can get. I'm just doing the very light lines, making sure I got all the details in there. Now I proceed to lightly erase the pencil sketch, making sure that I am doing it lightly as to not break the surface of the good paper. Once that is done, I now start with my colors. In this case, grayscale, as I want this one to match my other previous Animal Crossing drawings. If you're not bold, just like I am not bold, you should now go back to your scribbles, to your doodles, and just use them as, guinea pigs. This is where I usually try out colors, see where I want it shaded, where it should be lighter and brighter and darker, what colors work with each other. So just use them to experiment before you're actually drawing on your good paper, because unlike drawing digitally, there is no going back. Once you messed it up, and you have to pivot. Which I do a lot, by the way. Once you're done with the color or the grayscale, it is time to actually do the proper line work. Now, this is the part of this piece which will take you the longest, and it does require a very steady hand. You don't want to mess it up here. However, this is also the part where you can clean up some mistakes or any bleeding which was caused by your coloring. So, if you messed up something beforehand during the coloring process, you may or may not be able to fix it whilst doing your ink work. Make sure you're still working with a fairly thin fine liner whilst you're doing the actual outlines, because quite frankly, if your hand isn't super steady and you're using a thicker one, it's going to be a lot harder to actually cover up any mistakes you make. While if you're, have a little mishap with a very, very thin line, that one's easier to somehow cover or recover from, rather. And once you're done with all the ink work and you're happy with how it looks like, we can now proceed to actually add highlights. For that, I'm using the Jelly Roll from SAKURA. It's basically just, I guess, white ink. I'm not sure how this is called in English. 'Tis white, and I am using it for highlights. Be mindful here where your light source is. So make sure to only actually use it on the side of the light. If you happen to, mess up with your white ink, you can always just go back to your black ink and try to cover it. Also, it is not water resistant. So if you were to go over it with, let's say, any of the Copics or markers, it does start to dissolve when you go over it once or twice or thrice. Pretty sure that's a word. It is also quite thick, so if there is a specific point where you feel like you messed up the white parts, you could technically take a scalpel and scrap it off a little bit. You've got to be very, very careful not to damage the paper, and then afterwards you can maybe go over it with some Copics, etc. It's just going to make it easier to kind of hide it away if there was a mistake. I've definitely done that a lot before. Just some finishing touches, and voila, meringue. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you happen to be one of the people who drew alongside with me, feel free to share your end result via my Discord or Twitter @Soembie. Can't wait to see what you guys came up with. If you want to purchase any of my drawings or a fine art print of my drawings, you can do so on my Etsy site. Link should be right here, right now. And as per usual, if you have any comments, questions, remarks, feel free to drop them below and I'll be answering all of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in my next video.